Uh, I like to keep things light-hearted, but tonight isn't that. See if you're sitting here tonight, it's no mistake. And see if you're listening online, it's no accident, it's no mistake. In a minute, Brian Madden's going to get up and tell you his true life story about how God changed him and transformed his life, saved him from his sin. And I don't think Brian will care less if you forget about what he does for a living, or what his favourite football team is, or what he had for dinner last night. He'll not care less. What he'll care about is that you remember that Jesus Christ saved him from his sin, and transformed his life, changed him completely. That's what he'll care about, and that's what he's going to tell you about. And he's also going to tell you that he can change you and transform you, and he can save you from your sin. That's what he's going to tell you about tonight, and that's what he'll care about. So please listen to him. Forget about all the things going on in your head for the time that he's here, and listen to him as he shares his story. I'm going to pray here, and then Brian's going to get up. Brian, that clock's not working. So listen, keep her lit. Keep her lit. Lord, thank you that you've brought Brian here tonight. Thank you that there's people here tonight, and they may not even know why they're here. They said yes to an invitation, and they haven't a clue what they're doing sitting here. But you know why they're here, Lord. You know that they're here tonight for a reason. And I pray, Lord, tonight that through Brian's testimony, that you'll speak to them. And if they need to be convicted of their sin, I pray that's what will happen, Lord. That they'll see the sin in their lives and turn from it, and that they'll live for you. I pray that you'd save the folk here tonight from their sin. Thank you for Brian. Thank you that his life's been transformed. Thank you that that's what you do, Lord. You sent your Son, Jesus Christ, into this world to save people from their sin, and that they could be in a relationship with you. Pray you'll help Brian tonight. Thank you for your Son. In your name, amen.
Thanks for the welcome, Ben. When you were first up there and you mentioned the crack, it got me thinking of the language we use here when I was in America preaching. And, in actual fact, I didn't go to America to go preaching. Me and my wife thought we would go for a nice, quiet holiday. And a friend in New York told another pastor in Miami that I was about 2 miles from his church, and he asked me to come and preach. And while I was preaching, I kept telling him about the crack in Ireland's great. And the Americans thought I was taking cocaine. I kid you not. So next time I was in America, I never used the word. Just in case you ever go, Ben, just in case. But listen, I'm delighted to be here tonight, and I was thinking coming down, I'm a Christian now 36 years, and if you had told me that when I wasn't saved, I would have definitely thought you were on drugs. So a little bit about myself, so I can give you the background. At the moment, I'm married to a very persevering wife called Martine. How she puts up with me, she needs a medal, because I'm insane at times. And she's a victim of the trouble. She lost her leg in the trouble, so she's been disabled most of her life. I've got 3 daughters. Michelle, Jessica, who was born with severe brain damage, and Rebecca, who's bleeding me dry because she's getting married on the 1st of September, and I'm absolutely skint. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 grandkids, and I pastor in McGarbury, not the prison, McGarbury Elim Church, although I do go into the prison, and they also look after the work of Teen Challenge Northern Ireland, reaching those people who are trapped in addiction with the hope of Jesus Christ and getting them into Christian rehabilitation homes. So I was born in a place called Tigers Bay in the north of Belfast, if any of you know that place. Is there anybody here from Tigers Bay or used to be from Tigers Bay? No? Well, that's where I was born. Actually, in actual fact, I was born on 140 Limestone Road. There were huge big houses right next to the Presbyterian Church. So I'm almost an original Tigers Bay man, which was defined as one street, Mackey Street. So I was about 100 yards from Mackey Street. So I'm as close as you can get. I'm the second eldest of a family of 5, of an older brother, two younger sisters and a younger brother, Trevor, who you can pray for. He's an alcoholic and really needs set free. I remember we lived in the Dunkern Gardens, at the top of the Dunkern Gardens in flats, just at the start of the Troubles. I was born in 1967, so you'll do the maths now and find out what age I am. I'm 56. And I can remember at about the age of 4 or 5, I lived a nice young life. You know, we had fun in that part of North Belfast where we were. The Troubles didn't really affect us. And then, about the age of 4 or 5, as was happening on both sides, the IRA put us out of our flat and told us that we had to move out. When you're 4 or 5, you don't really understand what's going on. So I just thought we were moving. I didn't know why we were moving. I know now, but I didn't know why I was moving at that time. But because we were Protestant and there was a huge shift, we moved and we went round to the Limestone Road and we moved into a house that they were putting Catholics out. So there was a change almost as we were being put out. Someone was moving into our flat, and as the UDA were putting a Catholic family out, we were moving into their house, which is a bit insane. So growing up as a young man, that probably affected me, because I liked the flat better than the house. The house we were in, at least the flat had a bathroom. The house we moved into had an outside toilet. So I felt a wee bit downcast because of that. My father at that time was a heavy drinker. He done a lot of drinking. In fact, probably till I was about 18, I can't remember really seeing my dad sober. He was always drunk. My mum was a barmaid, which sort of didn't help matters. So both of them sort of stayed out most of the night, and we were left sort of to rear ourselves, as the saying goes. I went to Cliftonville School on the Cliftonville Road, but again, because of the Troubles, we were forced out of there. I then went to Curry School and grew up in Tigers Bay, knocking about with people in Tigers Bay, which was a huge loyalist area at that time, made up of UDA and UVF, who were the police in the area. They were the police. So the RUC were not the police. If you had a problem, you went to a paramilitary organisation, and they sorted out the problem in ways that would not be legal to do today and weren't legal to do back then. And I had this ingrained in me growing up that Roman Catholics were my enemy. It was indoctrinated into me from 5, 6, 7, right up through primary school that Roman Catholics were my enemy. I'd never met a Roman Catholic, so defining someone as your enemy who you had never met is a bit insane, isn't it, to say the least? But most of us were told that. And growing up, when I got till about 8 or 9, probably 10, that's the first time I had my first drink. When I was 10 years of age, I stole a couple of cans of Guinness from my dad, and he didn't know they were gone, and then I started to drink Guinness. I then found out very quickly, around 10, 11, and 12, that I could get drunk and my mum and dad wouldn't know because they were always drunk. So if they came in drunk and I was drunk, they didn't know I was drunk. And that gave me a liberty to delve deeper in the alcohol. My mum did try her best with me. My mum, all my friends were going to Mount Cooler Secondary School, and my mum wanted me to go to the boys' model school, trying to get me away from the friends that I had because we were getting into a lot of trouble. By the age of 12, I'd been arrested about 25 times by the police for riotous behaviour, petrol bombing at the age of 12, and other crazy stuff, always under the influence of alcohol. But by then I'd started to delve into drugs, and they just totally spaced me out to such an extent that I'd have woke up in the morning and I had absolutely no idea what I'd done the night before. Absolutely no idea at all. So if the police had have arrested me for something, I would have had no alibi because I didn't know where it'd been. Now that carried on for a good few years. I went out. My mum, reluctantly for me, my mum sent me to the boys' model school. I was expelled after 1 year. Ernie Davies expelled me after 1 year. And I don't say this to glorify the devil. I done a silly thing and broke a guy's teeth who was telling me what to do. And I was this angry young man and lashed out at people. And Ernie Davies brought me in and told me that he wouldn't tolerate such stuff in the boys' Madden school, and he expelled me. And I didn't tell my mum I'd been expelled. Even though my mum and dad liked to drink, my dad would still have beat the living daylights out of me. So I was fearful of telling them that I'd been expelled from school. I just didn't tell them. So for 3 months I let on I was going to school. I shouldn't be laughing, but I got my uniform on, got my bag, and went on out to school. But I was just going up in the Alexander Park with drink and tablets and drugs, sort of hid from the night before, and sitting drinking all day and taking tablets all day. And I seemed to be getting away with it, so I wasn't getting any education for 3 months. And then I came home one day, and my mum was standing with this guy with a briefcase who was a truant officer. And he had informed my mum that 3 months previously I'd been expelled from the boys' model. So for 3 months I hadn't been going to school. She didn't take it too well. She was very, very upset. And my mind was so mixed up then, I didn't really care. I had this sense of empathy. I didn't really care for anybody. And I was just in self-destruct mode. I got my wish, and they sent me to the Montcollier Secondary School. That's where I met my wife, and that's probably the only good thing that ever happened to me at Montcollier Secondary School, because it was a disaster for me. It was an absolute disaster. I was more times out of class than I was in class, so I'd have been removed from a class for a whole lot of different reasons and sent to the back wall of another class, look at the back wall, wasn't allowed to turn around. Back then, they strapped you. Kids get it late now, don't they? They really do. We had this big leather strap, and you had to touch your toes, and you got a few whaps with the strap. I got a lot like that. I'm wondering, can I get a claim for abuse back then? Probably not, of course, because I deserved it. They hit you in the head with a duster, and then there was rulers, and then there was canes. So I got all of that. I was held in detention. I was expelled. By the age of 14, around about the age of 14, I was really getting into serious trouble. So I was robbing people, robbing places, robbing building sites, because I needed money to fuel my addiction. By this time I was taking LSD, I was taking tablets, I was taking marijuana, and I needed money to fuel my addiction. So the only way I could fuel my addiction was rob my granny. When she had no money, try and rob my mum and dad, but it was like getting blood out of a stone, getting money of my dad, believe me, because he had drunk it all. And then when I couldn't get that, I was breaking into building sites and stealing stuff from building sites, taking it down to the travellers, who were known as gypsies back then, and they were banning the stuff off me. And then I'd have got money from my drink and my drugs. And that was an insane time in my life where I was totally spiraling out of control. By the age of 14, hitting 15, I started to self-harm. I tried to kill myself about 5 or 6 times. I obviously wasn't very successful, was I? Because I'm still here tonight. But I cut my wrists, I cut my arms, I stabbed myself, I jumped off a 20-foot wall. I had this voice in the mind telling me that I'd be better off dead than alive. That's sometimes where the devil takes you to when you're out of control. And drugs are an opening for the dynamic influence to come into your life. I didn't know none of this back then. I went to Sunday school. I was made to go to Sunday school. I used to toss between the two. There was a Presbyterian Sunday school, and then down was Mr. Coffey's Brethren Hall. And I loved going to the Brethren Hall because they give you Mars bars, and the Presbyterians didn't give you anything. So I was number one. And then I found out, I didn't know anything about salvation, but I found out that if you get saved, you got an extra Mars bar. So I get saved every day. I was getting Mars bars, and then Mr. Coffee caught on and says, Brian, you've had enough Mars bars, you're getting no more. It's not as if I wasn't hearing the gospel. It's not as if I wasn't going to church or I wasn't going to Sunday school. My mum and dad made me go, but they never went. And I grew up in that environment, but in the same token, I was still getting drunk, still getting high. Now the police were arresting me and bringing me home to my parents, taking me to detention centres at 14 and 15. But I never really got charged with anything because I wasn't at an adult age. I know today my daughter works not far from here in a centre where she looks after teenagers. But back then there was nowhere really for teenagers to go if you committed a crime, other than back to your parents who beat the living daylights out of you and hope that would calm you down. But that didn't work for me. But what it did do, it made me feel that I had a level of invincibility, that basically I could do anything and get away with it because I wasn't going to go to jail for it. And it was the worst, thinking them things was the worst thing probably ever happened to me, because then I really started to steal and rob and thieve and do some unimaginable things just to get money to drive the addiction that I had. I didn't know I was addicted. You know, at 14 I was an addict and I didn't know it, because I didn't know what an addict was, even though I was one. My mum was desperate. My mum decided that she would, God love her, she's in glory today, but my mum thought, well, I think the best thing to do, I'll get him to see a psychiatrist. You know, and my mum came to me one day crying and said, Brian, I want to try and help you. And there was no one really that I believe could help me. And I felt a bit sorry for her. And she told me she'd made an appointment with a psychiatrist. And I thought, okay, to ease some of her woes or worries, because I was bringing her a lot of pain, honestly, and I'm not proud of that. I was bringing my own mother a terrible, terrible lot of pain. And I remember going to see a psychiatrist on the Antrim Road, and I was sitting down in front of this guy, and by this time, my mind was just not focused on the realities of life. And he kept showing me little pictures of oranges and apples and stuff like that, and asking me when I seen a picture of an orange, what are you thinking at the moment? And I'm thinking this guy's a lunatic, showing me pictures of fruits and cabbages and then he asked me, and sometimes words can be very powerful in life. You've got to be careful with our words, the way we speak to people. And I say that because twice people spoke into my life, and I believe they had, 3 times, twice negatively that impacted my life greatly, and once positively. And this is the first negative one. This is a psychiatrist who tells me, what are you thinking now, Brian? And I was so annoyed with this guy, I looked at him, and I knew he had a Volkswagen, one of the old Volkswagens outside. And I said to him, well, I feel that right now I'm going to go downstairs and burn your Volkswagen. That's what I'm going to do. And he looked at my mum and said, would he really do that? And my mum, with tears in her eyes, says, yes, he probably would. And then he said this, there's nothing can be done for you. And that hit me. Like I'm 56 and I can still remember it. I can't remember anything else he said. I remember the pictures, but I'll never forget that. I can do nothing for you. There's nothing can be done for you. So in effect, his words led me on a deeper spiral, because I came out thinking, well, he's only telling me what I already believed. So there's nothing can be done for me. So I might as well just make the most of it. I left that place and went on another spiral, so much so that the paramilitaries were then looking for me. And by the age of 16, the UDA had given me about 3 punishment beatings, broke my jaw, broke my nose, broke my back. They'd done unseen things to me, which some of the stuff I did do and some of the stuff I didn't, because when you get a name, you get blamed with it anyway. So I hated the paramilitaries. I absolutely hated them. Even though my dad was in the UDA and my brother joined the UVF, I absolutely hated them. I felt like if I had had a gun, I would have shot one of them. I wouldn't have cared less. So they beat me a few times, and then the UVF started to beat me as well, trying to beat the behaviour out of me or what it was doing out of me. And none of it was really working. None of it was really working. At the age of 17 and 18, I then realised that I was being arrested and the police could keep me. And my mum thought, well, when he's 18 and he gets arrested, maybe that'll change him. But that didn't even change me. I was so far down in the depths of sin, so bound by the powers of the devil, that nothing was going to stop me and nothing was going to change me. I was waking up in police cells in a dingy wee cell on a plastic mattress with urine all around me, wondering how I got there and how did I end up here, and then getting back out again and doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. My girlfriend then, who's now my wife, I met my wife when I was 12. God, that's why I'm saying she's great perseverance. She went through with me all the way through that. Her mum and dad were respectable business people, and they didn't want me anywhere near their daughter, which I agree with them. I wouldn't have wanted someone like me near my daughter anyway. And I remember on one occasion, I had violently attacked, me and another chap had violently attacked members of the UVF and their taxi depot after they hit my friend. And it was the 11th of July, and on the 12th of July, some people told me that the UVF were looking at me, that they were going to kill me, that's the end of my life. And the strange thing is, that didn't frighten me. I couldn't have cared, because I wanted to die anyway. I didn't care. So they eventually got me, and took me round the back of an old picture house on the Shore Road. Put me into a bin, put a bag over my head and put a gun to the side of my head. And I just heard the click of the gun, and I thought, am I dead? Is this what being dead's like? Am I gone? And then I heard this voice saying, are you all right? And this little man with Jack Russell came and took the thing they had over my head. And I just get out and run. I just run. Now, I don't know to this day why the gun jammed or whether they were trying to frighten me or whatever, but I believe that the gun did jam. I believe that God had a plan that I knew nothing about, and I survived. I sort of backed off a little bit then, because when someone does that, Johnny, even though I wasn't afraid to die, I still wanted to live a wee bit longer, because there was a joy in my sin. You know, there was pleasures in sin. I'm not going to tell you I wasn't enjoying it. That's the stupidity of the whole thing. My wife, Martine, my girlfriend then, it was a nightmare. What I put her through was hell, as well as my own mum. When she was driving me places in her car, I couldn't drive. She could. The RUC would have pulled us in 3 and 4 times a night and stripped the car down and taken the very seats out of the car. One time they even took the wheels off the car, looking for stuff that they maybe thought that I'd had or stolen or whatever. And she was completely innocent, you know. Why she stayed with me, I do not know. It was miraculous. Then I being arrested at 18, I sort of clocked up a lot of charges. I had 48 charges, and I had a court appearance for 48 charges. And to be honest with you, I went drunk to court. I got, it was called Eric Adair's rocket fuel. He made it himself out the back. I got a bottle of it for $1.25 and 2 cans of Carlsberg, and just drunk them before I went to court. I was told to bring a bag with me. I'll bring a bag. But this is a positive one, by the way. There was actually 2 positive things happened. So I get this bag. I'm standing in court, and the police are smiling because they're thinking, well, at least we're going to get rid of him for a couple of years, because I was torturing the police as well. I used to go to bed with my clothes on, so that when the police came to arrest me, at least I had clothes on. I just expected them to arrest me. And I remember standing in the court, and there was an old judge, I can't remember his name, and his glasses were down his nose like that. And I'm standing to the right, and he looks down at me, and he's reading out my charges. It took him about 20 minutes to read all the charges out. It's in the Crumlin Road High Court, the old building that's wrecked and ruined now. And I'm standing there as an 18-year-old man. He looks down at me, and he says to me, by all accounts, you should be getting 3 to 4 years in jail today. But I see something in you. And I thought, what? He says, I see something in you. And he gave me a 2-year suspended sentence and 2 years probation. I couldn't believe it. Now, it disturbed me because I came out of the court thinking, what did he see? What on earth did he... The police were fuming. Absolutely fuming. So I went out and got drunk to celebrate and got arrested the very same night. That's what I'd done. Fortunately enough, they didn't charge me, because if they had charged me, I would have had to do the 2 years. So when that happened to me, it sort of made me even feel that, well, the UVF have tried to kill me. The police tried to get me 3 or 4 years. Am I invincible? Can I get through anything? So I went down, and there was a guy who was doing LSD, and I was getting LSD off him, and then he get killed. Someone murdered him, and I couldn't get the LSD, so I had to go and see the gypsies to see if they could get someone, and I was getting stuff off the gypsies. And then back then, the way the paramilitaries were, if you'd done drugs, they'd kneecapped you or shot you or whatever the case may be. But I was trying to do it under stealth mode. But when you get drugs and drink in you just go crazy. But what happened was sorry, I should have told you the second time someone said negative things to me. When I was leaving school, when I was leaving Montcoulier Secondary School, I left a month early. They were glad to see me go. And Derek Shanks, he was a PE officer, and he says to me, Brian Madden, you'll never accomplish anything in your life. You're a deadbeat. I remember that too. And I left with that in my heart and in my mind. But just at about the age of 18, my mum's friend, Doreen, was a Christian. And Sammy Workman, some of you might remember Sammy Workman, he was a great gospel preacher. Sammy Workman was doing a tent crusade in Rathcoole on the Diamond in Rathcoole. And Mita Harper had asked my mum, would she like to go? So my mum went to the Sammy Workman crusade, and lo and behold, my mum got saved. She became a Christian. And she came back home with a smile on her face. I'd come in, I don't know where I'd been, but it was usually off my head. And she told me with this joy in her heart that she was a Christian, and my words were, well, you can keep that nonsense to yourself. Don't be telling me anything about your Jesus, about your God. He's done nothing for me. I was angry with God, and God hadn't done anything in me. It was all self-inflicted. We're all like that, aren't we? It's always God's fault, but it was my fault. It was nothing to do with God. But I was that angry, I just didn't know how to get out, and no one was coming to offer me a way out. I was just angry at everybody and everything. So my mum became a Christian, and then my mum was a prayer warrior. My mum prayed for me, but she let me hear her prayers. So I'm in the other room, in the bedroom, and I'm hearing these prayers. Lord, will you please save our Brian? And I'm thinking, will you please shut up? Will you just leave me alone? And then I was going out of the house and getting alcohol to drown out all these voices of people praying. And about 6 months after my mum got saved, there was a guy called to our house called Pastor Terry Fittis. He was a pastor in Whitewell, one of the pastors in Whitewell Metropolitan Church. And he called up to see my dad, and lo and behold, my dad got saved. He became a Christian, and now I'm starting to think people are ganging up on me. This is a stitch-up. By this time, I had joined the National Front. I become a National Front member and a Nazi. So I had swastikas all around my house, and I was a skinhead. We all became skinheads, and that led to sniffing glue and sniffing petrol and everything else. So the devil's in one room and Jesus is in the other room, It was really insane. I had all these things, if you're not white and British, get out and stay out, and you deserve to die. I was going to London, the National Front garden parties. I know now, looking back, that all these people that were driving Ferraris and Porsches were firing us up to tell us what to do, but they weren't doing it. I was wise enough then to know that and say, dead on, mate, do it yourself. I'm in England here. I'm not going out into Tottenham to do anything for you while you drive home in your Ferrari. But I had this hatred, identity as a skinhead. That kept me out of the paramilitaries, which was a good thing, even though some of my friends joined them. But my dad got saved, and I was disappointed. I was absolutely disappointed. My dad went out every Saturday to go around all the shops and get all the money off the people for protection money for the UDA. And when he told them he'd become a Christian, they made him do that to see whether he was real or not. Now, you got to remember, in my whole life, I never seen my dad on a Saturday sober in my entire life. Never once. And this Saturday, my mum was sitting waiting on him coming back, and I usually went out on a Saturday, but for badness, that's all it was. I stayed, chirping in my mum's ear, he'll be in the pub, he'll not be back. Sure, he's in the pub. My goodness, sure he can't walk past the pub. And I went on, and my mum was sitting praying, and then, lo and behold, I look out the window, and there's my dad walking up the street, sober as a judge, with a smile on his face. And I run out of the house. Here's me. This isn't on. There's something going on here. I don't like this at all. 3 months after that, my sister gets saved. And I'm thinking, Lord, please. Now, by this time in my life, I had the UVF, UDA, and the IRA look at me. I had 3 paramilitary groupings look at me that wanted me removed, wanted me taken out. There wasn't a week went past in my life that I wasn't arrested by the police, but I very quickly learned to say nothing, just keep your mouth shut and say nothing. So I was usually getting out within 48 hours and being released on bail or whatever the case may be. But what actually happened, I had this, getting to the stage where Christ broke in or broke through. My mum contracted cancer, and she actually succumbed to it. It actually killed her. But my mum took cancer, and she was getting chemotherapy, radiotherapy, all the treatments, and she was really bad with that treatment. Her hair was falling out, and she was sick and everything. And one night I'm lying in my bed with my clothes on and my slippers at the side of the bed, and I heard the bang on the front door and the footsteps running up the stairs, and I knew it's the police. So I got up and put my slippers on, and I just got up and put my hands behind my head, and they handcuffed me, and they took me down the stairs. And this was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and just then my mum comes out of her bedroom, and she'd been very ill that day. And the police stopped at the bottom of the stairs and were holding me, and I'm thinking, let's go, get out. And my mum drops down onto her knees at the top of the stairs, just drops on her knees. And she cries at the top of her voice, Lord, please, 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 save our Bran before he dies. And the police wouldn't move, And I'm thinking, Mum, please go in to bed. Please. And she's praying and praying. For about 10 minutes, the police made me stand there. And then they put me into the Land Rover. And I'm in the prison cell, and all I can see is a picture of my mum. And that's the first time in my life where I had felt conviction. I felt bad about what I was doing. Other times I couldn't give a toss. But at that time, I felt really bad. It's the first time I've experienced feeling bad about what I was doing on my mum. Now, it didn't stop me, but it was the first moment of conviction. I had a friend. His name was Hugh Knocker. And Hugh Knocker had went to the Brethren Church in Carrickfergus, but he hadn't been out to church for a good while. In Northern Ireland we have these terminologies, backsliders or gone cold or whatever the case may be, so he may be one of them. And every Christmas we used to go down and see Hugh. Hugh was probably about 20 years older than me, but we became very good friends. And we went down to see him on January because we couldn't get down at Christmas. I think Martine was in the hospital, my wife, and we went down in January. And went down. I came down with a bottle of wine. I'm sitting facing this guy, big guy. He was a real big guy. And I'm looking at him, and I think I'd taken a bit of grass before I came in and a few tablets, so I was probably zoned out somewhere. And we're talking in general, and then he said this to me, Brian, I'm worried about you. And I looked at him and said to him, now Hugh was an ex-brigadier in the UVF, so he was still in the know. I says, you're worried about me, Hugh? What are you worried about me for? He says, Brian, you're going to get killed. You're going to die. He says, well, what age are you? Here's me, I'm 19. He says, you're not going to see 20. He says, I'm telling you now, there is no way in this possible earth that you're going to see 20. I says, well, how do you work that out, Hugh? He says, well, the UVF, the UDA, the INLA were looking at me, and the IRA are all looking for you. And his words were to me, you've got to be lucky all the time. They only need to be lucky once. And when they get you, you're gone. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm feeling a wee bit angry, and I said to him, well, then what's your answer, Hugh? What do you think I should do? And then he said to me, you should give your life to Jesus. And I burst out laughing. I just burst out laughing. He says, me, when's the last time you were at church? Brian, it doesn't matter. He says, the only hope for your life, he says, I know you're sitting there and you're high and you've taken stuff and you've been addicted for years, but the only hope for your life is Jesus Christ. He says, the courts can't fix you, psychiatrists can't fix you, counselors can't fix you. Jesus Christ can. And I was so annoyed. I says to my girlfriend, Martine, come on, we're going. That's us, come on. Out of here, let's go. I've got my mum and dad in the house saved, my sister saved. I didn't come down here to listen to this. I just come down for a drink. So we left. I said, you'll see you in a month or two. We're going to head on. Wasn't cheeky to him, but we left. And we're driving up to Carrick, and we come on to the motorway at White Abbey. And it's the 17th of January. The rain is pelting down, and the wind shooting across the lake, and the signs up to drive at 30 mile an hour on the motorway. I'll give you an idea how windy it was. So we joins this motorway, and I looks up at that sign, and all I can say it was like this voice in my consciousness, not an audible voice. Brian, if this car goes off the motorway, you're going to hell. And my innermost being froze. And at that moment, I sees the prayers of my mum, the words of Hugh, and this conscious thought or word in my mind. And for the first time in my life, I felt frightened. They say the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But I felt really frightened. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself this question. And this is all going on in a matter of seconds. Where am I going to be in 5 years? And I couldn't see anywhere, anything. I couldn't see me and my girlfriend getting married. I couldn't see me having a family. I answered the question myself. I won't be here in 5 years. And my girlfriend's driving. I'm sitting and I'm thinking, you know, Hugh's right. The only person can change me is Jesus. I wasn't even sure whether I believed in God. Isn't that strange? But I'm in that car and I find myself for the first time in my life praying. And I'm talking to God, not audibly. I'm saying, Lord, I have made the biggest mess anyone can make in my life. I've hurt so many people. I've offended so many people. But more importantly than that, I've offended you and I've hurt you. And I'm so, so sorry. Can you save me, please? Please save me and change my life, please. And I'm sitting, and all I can describe is this peace flooded through me. Just this peace. And at that very moment, I just knew at that very moment that I was saved. I just knew. I didn't even think about how it was going to play out, how I was going to sort all the problems out, or all the difficulties out, and the people he owed money to, and the people who stole stuff off. I didn't think about anything like that. I just was focused on the forgiveness that God could give me and He could save me. And I was stunned, because I'd never, ever, ever, ever in my life experienced a peace like I'd experienced at that moment. Never. And I never said a word to my girlfriend till she dropped me off at my house in Tigers Bay. And I looked at her and I said to her, now she was going to church, by the way, but she would never give her life to Christ because she was going with me. At least that's what she told me. And I turned to her and said to her, Martine, that's me finished. I've had enough of this life. I'm a changed man. She thought I was going to kill myself. And I said to her, I've just get saved. And she looked at me and says, are you getting out? She was stunned. And I got out and she drove off and left me standing in the street. She probably was stunned. So I'm now feeling like a new man. And I come in to the house and my mum is sitting on the settee. And I looked at her and I said to her, Mum, I've got something to tell you. And she started to cry. And at that moment, I realized the hurt and the pain I'd been inflicting upon my mother. And the only news I ever brought her was bad news. So when I told her of something to tell you, she automatically expected bad news. It's a terrible thing to put your mother through. I'm really ashamed of it. And I looked at her and says, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's good. And she says, Brian, you've never done anything good. I says, I know that, Mum. I'm sorry, but I'm a Christian now. And she just looked at me and got up, squealing the tears, hugged me. Oh, this is an answer to prayer, Ava. And my dad heard it. He was in the back kitchen. He came running in. What did I hear there? I says, I've just got saved. And he ran out of the house. He ran out of the house to tell his friends. He did, honestly. He never even shook my hand or nothing. He just run. So he came back and he says, what happened to you? And I told him, but if you'd have came and told me you're not, I knew I was saved. I knew. I just knew. I felt completely different. I was seeing things different. I just could see everything different. I could see the hurt and the pain I caused, and I actually felt sorrow for it, which was remarkable. I went to bed, and had the best night's sleep I've ever had in my life. I slept like an absolute baby. Someone says don't say that because babies never sleep. But I just had this amazing night's sleep. And I got up that morning, and there was a prayer meeting in the Presbyterian Church at 6 o'clock in the morning. And my dad always went to it, and I says, I'm going with you. I'd never get up at 6. I was coming home at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd never get up at 6, but I came home at 6. But I got up that morning, got washed, and me and my dad went to the prayer meeting. And we went in the Newton Presbyterian Church. The Reverend Conkey was a minister at the time. And they were having a wee prayer meeting in the back room. And of course, now I'm feeling bad about my sin. So I'm in this back room and I'm looking at the glass ceiling. And I'm thinking, I took a lead off that roof. I did. And caused a flood to come in. Back then, £3,000 worth of damage is a lot of damage that I caused. Now, how do you pray in a room that you vandalized without telling anyone? I used to think these Christians in this church were stuck-up people, and they didn't like me. When I was going home in the early hours of the morning, they were going to church. Shows you how late I was coming home at. And they used to look at me, and I thought they were looking at me in a judgmental fashion, so I didn't really like them. That's why I took the lead off the roof, which is it's wrong. What I done was wrong. So at the end of their prayer meeting, that wasn't a very good prayer meeting for me. At the end of their prayer meeting, I asked to speak to the Reverend Conkey, and he came, big tall guy. He came to me, and I said to him, Reverend Conkey, I have a problem. Oh, Brian, he says, wonderful news, you've got saved. I says, yeah, but I've got an issue here, and I need your help to deal with it. I'm not feeling very good. Oh, you'll feel like that sometimes. I says, no, but listen, let me talk. The lead off your roof, the damage that was done. Yes, Brian. That was me. I done that. And I'll never forget what he said to me. We know it was you. And I thought, what? What do you mean you knew it was me? I'm sitting in there suffering, and you knew it was me all along? Yeah. And then I asked him this question. It was a simple question. Why did you not get the police? And he turned and he said to me, we prayed for you, and look how it turned out. And I thought at that moment, I want to be like that man. I've been so wrong about these Christians. I want to be like that man. And that man, real godly man, asked me to go to another church where there's about 50 or 60 of a youth. My girlfriend went to the church. And I didn't want to disown him. I didn't want to leave because I felt I liked him, and I could maybe learn something from him. But he told me to leave. Yeah, he told me that morning after I told him about the roof, because they had no youth in that church, and I was 19, and I would have been the youngest member, and he wanted me more than anything to go on with God. That's what he wanted. So I come home and I told my mum what had happened. Well, I went down and told my mum what had happened, and she was, some of the ladies might remember, maybe you used to rake the fire. Do they do that now? No, to get the ashes out. So my mum's raking the fire, and she has tears in her eyes. I said, are you all right, Mum? The police were here. I says, oh, right. Like this, I'm different now. I'm a saved man. The police is no issue to me. You have to go down to York Road Police Station. They want to see you. So I got some breakfast. I waited till 9 o'clock, because if I had went down at 8 o'clock, the CID don't come in to 9. You'd have been sitting in a cell for about an hour. So got my breakfast. Went down at 9 o'clock, brought me in for questioning. And here's the strangest thing. So I'm a Christian now. And they started to question me about a £17,000 jewellery robbery in Lower North Street. It's the only time in my life I had an alibi. Isn't that? Do you think that's coincidence? The only time in my life I had a rock-solid alibi is one day after I became a Christian. And I smiled at them and said to them, I can't believe this. He says, you can't believe what? That you done it? I says, I actually have an alibi. And it was rock solid. So they went and checked it out and released me. And I'm thinking, this Christianity stuff's great. I'm enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this. So I went home, and I got arrested 3 times in the 1 week, and every time I got arrested at alibis. This is really great. I'm thinking clearly now. I can remember what I'd done last week. So I'm learning how to pray, and I'm up praying. And in my room where I prayed, there was about 6 huge big batteries that I'd stole. And then I was going to sell them to the travellers. And every time I'm trying to pray, I see these batteries. And I can't pray because I've stole these batteries. And I can't give them back because the guys are gone. All the houses were open, and the Langs builders had gone. And I started to bring them all down the stairs because I couldn't pray. I just couldn't pray. It mightn't sound sensible, might sound crazy to you, but that's just my experience. And my mum says to me, where are you going with them? I said, I'm taking them down to the police. What for? I says, I stole them. Oh, Brad, if you tell them that, they'll jail you. I says, well. So I took these batteries down to York Road Police Station, buzz the buzzer, and they keep the gate open. So I'm bringing these big things in, and the guy's going, yo, Brian, what are you doing? Where am I going to put them? I says, I don't really care, Sergeant, but just get your pen out. I says, I'm a Christian. I stole them. I want to give them back. What? I says, I want to give them back. He says, leave them or get away home, he says. And don't be bringing anything else down here. Go on. Get away home. And I says, buddy, you're not going to get out, he says. 1 minute they couldn't wait to get me in, and now they can't wait to get me out. I was mad. I come back and I'm phoning Martine saying, you're not going to believe this. The cops are throwing me out now. They don't want to arrest me. So I had to go to a lot of people and put a lot of things right, and I did. I went around them all. And I remember one of the guys I run about with was a guy in the UVF, and me and him drunk and went to Rangers games and everything, get into terrible trouble. And I about 4 days after I was saved, I went to see him, and I walked into his room, and he hadn't heard I'd get saved. And he looked at me and he said to me, Brian, there's something different about you. He says, do you think so, Ricky? He says, you've got saved. I says, how did you know? He says, you've changed. Now, good news is he was down with cancer, and I led him to the Lord a few years ago. And I came out of his house. I just told him, Ricky, the days of drinking and getting on, they're behind me now. But I wasn't working. I had no job. Who's going to employ me? The convictions I have couldn't be trusted. I'd know. If I was coming in for a job to you and telling you have 75 charges for robbery, stealing, looting, I was taking drugs, LSD, stealing batteries, you'd be going, aye, right, son. Tell you what, go on up there. There's a guy up there looking someone. So I knew I needed to work. I didn't want to be living on the dole. I left school with no education, and I started to pray. I joined the Elam church, and a guy said to me, Brian, get down. He was a lift engineer. Get down and ask the boss down there if he'll start you. He might start you. So I went down, and I went in to see this guy, Jackie Graham, you called him. He's from down around this area. And he says to me, where are you from, son? Here's me, Taggers Bay. He says, when can you start? Here's me, what about the interview? I don't need an interview from Taggers Bay or Sound. When can you start? And he gave me a job. Honestly, he gave me a job. I came out, and of course, everyone was praying, and, well, how did it go? I got it. That's an answer to prayer. It's the strangest answer to prayer I ever seen in my life. I didn't know how prayer worked. But I got the job, and I started, and I worked my way up, worked my way through. I had trials in my life. My mum died of cancer about 2 years later. We lost her. My wife's mum took cancer, and we lost her, and then her dad took cancer, and we lost him. It wasn't all sweetness and light and joy, so we had to battle through those moments in her life. But I remember when we got engaged, and my wife said, you're going to have to go and ask my daddy for my hand in marriage. I says, your dad doesn't even like me. I'm not going to ask him. She says, well, you need to go and ask him. Her dad was Alec Doherty. He played football and all. Her brother's Lee Doherty played for Linfield and Glenavon. He was associated with Bangor and stuff. And I went up the stairs to see him. And I said, Alec, I've got something to ask you. And he says, well, what is it? I says, I'd like to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage. And he looked at me and he said to me, if you'd have came to me last year and asked me that, now he wasn't a Christian, I'd have thrown you down the stairs. But such a change in your life, it would be a privilege to have you as a son-in-law. And I thought, wow. You see where all the negatives are now turning positives? The transformation of Christ. Christ is positive. I'm getting all these positives. We got married. We had a daughter, Michelle, who just come back to the Lord there about 6 months ago. and everything was great. We had another daughter, Jessica, who was born with severe brain damage and needs 24-hour care. But we never faltered in our faith with Christ, because what Christ rescued me from, I've got nothing to go back to, and I wouldn't want to go back to it. I'm thanking God that He's kept me for 36 years, because I couldn't possibly keep myself. Impossible. I would have been dead and gone. I remember one time my girlfriend, Martine, thought she'd teach me how to drive. That's a disaster. Never do that. And she took me down to Duncrew Street where there's less traffic. And I'm trying to drive this Talbot Samba. And it's jumping, and I'm blaming her, even though I'm behind me. It's your fault. If you have a quiet for a minute, I'd maybe get this. It was, oh, good Lord, it was terrible. And the next minute, you hear a bang, and we've blown a tire out. And that's her fault again, because she's talking. That's what blew the tire out. It wasn't that I hit the curb and wrecked the thing or anything, So we're sitting there with the hazard lights on, and this blue light flashes behind us. Here's me. Here we go. I'm only a Christian about a year. And these 4 police officers got out, and every single one of them had arrested me at least 5 or 6 times. Every single one of them had stopped me and searched the car, every single one of them. And they got out and they said to me, "Brian, what's wrong?" They were like, "My girlfriend's trying to teach me how to drive here, but we're not been very successful." And I hit that curb, and I've punctured the tire. "Have you got a spare wheel?" I says, "Oh, there's one in the boot." I opened the boot. He says, "Where is it?" And you know what they done? They fixed my puncture. They changed the tire. Not kidding you. I was standing watching. I mean, hold on a minute. They're going to put an arrest me. There's something. This can't be happening. Like, this isn't real. There was no phones or I videoed them. Here's me. This is insane. And they stopped, and the guy turned around. Big guy turned around and said to me, "That'll be okay, Brian. Sure, get." He says, "What are you doing? What did you do that for?" "Brian," he says, "you're the talk of the police station, son. What a change. What a change. We want you to go on. If there's anything we can ever do for you." Hey, she just beat the living daylights out of me. I know, but that's all forgot about now, isn't it? Here's me. So they all hugged me. All these cops are. I'm thinking, I'm going home. I'm in tears. I'm going home thinking, Jesus, what are you doing to me? 1 minute they're sticking cuffs on me, and then they're hugging me. I don't mean, are they schizophrenic or what? What's going on? Are they bipolar? Why? And it was mad. I'm working in the lifts, and again the same thing happens to me. We're working in West Belfast. I'm coming down Kennedy Way, and it's during the Troubles, and the police are doing a stop, and this sergeant called Billy Lemon's doing the stop, and as I drive up, there's Billy Lemon. He did arrest me about 20 or 30 times, and the army are with him, and I stopped, and I put the window down, and they looked in, and they said, "Brian Madden, what about you?" I says, "Not bad, Billy. We're working up here. We're putting a lifting up here. Just hold on a minute. Yo, come here. So he calls all these soldiers over, about 4 or 5 of them. And he says, tell them your story. He says, "See this fella here? Oh, good Lord. He was mad, mental," he says. "Couldn't stop him, fearless. Tell him what happened to you." So I told him how I met Jesus, and these guys were all, "Wow, that's incredible." And all the horns are going, beep, 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 all the line of traffic. And he took his glove off. He had a glove off, and he shook my hand. He says, "I'm proud of you, son. Proud of you. Keep going on." And I left floating. I'm thanking Jesus for all of this, because now these cops who I seen as my public enemy are now my friends, and now are happy that I'm doing something positive. And I'm telling my mum, and I'm telling my dad, I'm telling everybody I can meet. So as I said, I moved on, and then I got another job. I left. So this is bizarre. So as an addict, loser, insane, leaving with no education, I started an Otis elevator company, and then became the manager of the whole of Northern Ireland. I became manager. So I'm driving this company car, company credit card, about £35,000 a year, living a life, going to Florida for our holidays. And every now and then I'm thinking, this can only be God. This can only be God. And I used to pray like this. I used to pray, Lord, everything I have is yours. It's not mine. And if there ever comes a moment or ever comes a time when you want me to give it all back, just let me know, because it's not mine anyway to give, it's yours. And I prayed that prayer every single day of my life, every single day, because I realized where I was and what I'd been brought. People had given up on me, doctors had given up on me, psychiatrists had given up on me, but thank God Jesus didn't give up on me. He didn't give up on me. And I was so thankful. In a lift room, looking at an electronic board, and I have this same feeling that I had all those years ago when I got saved. And I feel the voice in my conscious mind saying, what are you doing here? Excuse me? What? What are you doing here? And I knew right there, right then, that was the moment that I had to give everything up for God, that God wanted me to do something else. Now, that's easier said than done when you've got your own company car and you've got your own company credit card and you're not paying for your fuel and your kids are going to Miami. I didn't really want to do it. Even though I'd been praying it, I didn't want to do it. I'm being honest with you. And a student cried, grown man, standing crying. And I phoned my wife. She says, what's wrong? And I told her. And she says, well, that's what you've been praying. God's answered your prayer. I said, well, what am I going to do? So I then went and met with certain people, and within 4 years later, I became an Elim pastor in a church. I left Otis as a service manager to start a new job as a minister for a salary £22,000 less. So I wasn't getting in for the money. But then God gave me it all anyway. I was only borrowing it off him. And we had terrible trouble at that time because my kids were saying, Daddy, please go back to Otis. Because I had to trim our budget, you see. We were now going to Spain instead of going to Miami. And the kids didn't take it too well. But God was faithful. God was absolutely faithful. And throughout my ministry, I've seen the miraculous hand of God, where God has put me in situations and used me quite remarkably. I have been in rooms with guys with M16 machine guns and disarmed them. I've been in bars where paramilitaries are about to kneecap people and I've stopped it. I've been in situations that you never dreamt possible, but then not many ministers would go into those situations, but because of where God brought me from, I was willing to do anything for him that he wanted me to do. And I was in all of those situations and getting positive results. There was one guy, and I'm coming to a close, so thank you for your attention. Hopefully I haven't been waffling too long. There was one guy in North Belfast. I won't name him, but he was the brigadier of the UFF. And when I became a Christian, I got about 16 death threats from the UDA. I did. Because I was a very outspoken Christian. And if they were dealing kids' drugs, I confronted them on the street that they were dealing kids' drugs. One young guy got drugs from the UDA and died because of it. I brought Dara McIntyre from Spotlight in and got Spotlight to do a hammer job on him. And he did. And within about a week, I was told, well, the police were coming to my door and saying, tell me, you've got a paramilitary death threat from loyalists. Here's me. Who's it from? Loyalists. Here's me. Will you just, UDA. Loyalists. I mean, well, tell them to know where I live, you know. God's my protector. I'm not going to let them do injustices on young people without me standing up. So this particular guy was the guy who was, I'm not saying he was responsible for all the death threats, but he probably knew about them. And he's the guy that I'm having these confrontational moments. And many occasions I went to his door, he wouldn't come out. He sent his wife out instead because he didn't want to face me. It's not me he was facing God. I was telling him truths he didn't want to hear. But I was fearless in doing it. And I'm telling you, we butted heads for years. And a few years ago, he sent for me. He's living in the Woodville. He's down with cancer. And he wants to talk to me. And I went in to see him, and he wasn't looking too well. And I said to him, well, what would you like me to do for you? He says, Brian, I'm down. I want you to do something for me. I says, well, as long as it's legal and nothing untoward, then I might do it for you. He said, I want you to do my funeral. And I looked at him and I said to him, and I was brutally honest, because I'm an honest person. I just tell people, I don't see the point in beating about the bush. I tell people that as it is. And I said to him, on one condition, I'll do your funeral. He says, what's the condition? I mean, that you give your life to Jesus Christ, because if you don't, I'll have nothing good to say about you. And he looked at me and he said, well, I wanted to talk to you about that as well. Do you think God could forgive me? And I shared the gospel with him and told him basically that Paul was the chief of sinners and we're all Indians. And if Jesus can save the chief, he can save him as well. And then he said this to me, which is very humbling. I actually cried at this guy's funeral because it was a very humbling moment. He looked at me and he says to me, Brian, I want you to lead me to Jesus. He says, but I want to say something. He says, I want the Jesus you have. I don't want any other Jesus. And I looked at him and thought, what? Why would you say that? And this is what he said to me. This is a brigadier in the UFF. He says, I've been watching you for the last 30 years and you're the real deal. I mean, you don't even like me. Oh, I did like you, but I couldn't tell anybody. I've been watching. Imagine watching you for 30. People watch you. I told him he's living a sad life watching me. And I had the privilege of leading him to Jesus Christ as he cried his way to Calvary and officiated his funeral and had something good to say about him. It's remarkable. That has happened to me umpteen times. Policemen have come to me that used to arrest me and other people. And I've had the privilege of leading them to the Lord Jesus Christ. Just a few years ago, not only I'm a pastoring, but God put me in charge of Teen Challenge here in Northern Ireland, which incidentally doesn't work with teenagers, it's adults, but such was the name when it started. And it was pretty easy for me in that as much I was an addict. Throughout my life, I've been trying to help addicts, so I sort of just fitted well into it without any problems, because there's so many hurting, broken people in society today. And maybe you're here tonight. I don't know what your situation is, whether you're a Christian, whether you're not a Christian. Maybe you're saying, well, I haven't lived a life like you, or maybe yours is worse. Who knows? But it doesn't matter how bad you are or how good you might think you are. We all need to be saved, because we've all told a lie, and that makes us liars. And we've all taken something that doesn't belong to us, and that makes us thieves. And we've all lusted, so that makes us adulterers, according to Jesus. So we've all broken God's law, every single one of us. Some may be worse than others, okay. So we all need His forgiveness, every single one. And maybe you're here tonight, and maybe you feel that you are broken. I'm telling you, I was broken. I was beyond help. But Jesus Christ reached me, and He picked me up. I'm not standing here tonight under my own merits, under my own strength, or under anything that I've achieved. I've achieved absolutely nothing in life apart from what Jesus Christ has achieved through me. It's not me. And if you would be brave enough to repent of your sin and give your life to Jesus, you'd have no idea the journey that he could take you on. I've been to Brazil. I've preached in the Amazon jungle. I've been to Japan. I've been to Philippines. I've been around the world. I've been to the Middle East. A broken young man from Tigers Bay, trying to kill himself, addicted to drugs. Jesus Christ sets people free. And he still does it today. And he can do it for you. I wonder, could you just bow for a moment in a word of prayer? And I really thank you for listening tonight. And if you have anything you'd want to ask me, feel free to do so at the end. But I would just like to ask tonight, there's some lovely books here, The Word 1-to-1, that will help people who are investigating Christ. See Ben or Robert or whoever, and they'll help you with these. But I want to put a call out to you tonight, that if you don't know Jesus Christ and you're thinking, this story has spoken to me and I need this transformation in my life. And while everybody's praying, can you, if you're, doesn't matter what age you are. I led a man to the Lord that was 91. Doesn't matter what age you are. If you'd like to put your trust in Jesus Christ, and you're not doing this for my benefit, I don't take any glory in this, can you simply raise up your hand and take it down again? Anyone? Praise God. There's one young man. Anyone else? Just put your hand up and take it down. Someone has already done it. There's someone else. Anyone else? Look, what I want, at least two, I think people have responded tonight. What I want you folks to do, see Ben or see me, Ben who was leading, and get one of these books and let them pray with you and lead you in a prayer of repentance to Jesus. Don't leave without coming to Jesus in a prayer of repentance, and get one of the books. And this is a great place for you to come and fellowship. Thank you very much. You've been awful gracious for listening to me tonight. And may the Lord richly bless you in everything that you do for him, and bless this great fellowship here. God bless. Thank you very much.
All right, folks, thanks very much for coming tonight. As you've heard Brian saying, tonight it's not about him, not about me, not about any of us. It's all about Jesus Christ, who can save. And he's still saving today. Save Brian from his sin, and he can save you as well. You just need to believe. Repent from your sin, turn away from your sin, and believe. I'm just going to pray, and that's us. Lord, thank you for the truth of the gospel. Thank you that you sent your Son into this world to die on a cruel cross for our sin, for us, Lord. And you rose again on the third day, conquering sin, conquering death. And now we can be made new through the power of your Son. Thank you for your Son. I pray that tonight there'll be people here who will think seriously, and you would open their eyes and they would think seriously about you, Lord. And they would know that they need, at this time, right now, not tomorrow, not next week, that they need to turn from their sin and believe in you and put their trust in you and live the rest of their life for you. Pray this in your name. Amen.